Okay, so you want to own a gas station. Good news, there are 152,000 of them in the United States. They sit on nearly every major intersection in every city in America. They are open around the clock. They sell a product that every single car owner needs to buy with complete predictability on a recurring basis for as long as they own that car. It sounds like the safest business in the world. It is not. The average gas station in the United States earns a net profit of between 3 and 7 cents per gallon of fuel sold, not dollars, cents. The average pump price in 2024 was around $3.50 per gallon. That means for every dollar a customer hands you at the pump, you keep less than 2 cents. The other 98 cents goes to the oil company that supplied the fuel, the taxes baked into every gallon by federal and state governments, and the cost of running the equipment that dispensed it. The average gas station sells around 4,000 gallons a day. At 7 cents net profit per gallon on a good day, that's $280 in daily profit from fuel. In a year, that's roughly $100,000 before expenses. By the end of this video, you will understand why the gas station, a business that generates $553 billion in annual U.S. industry revenue, sells 80% of all fuel purchased in this country, and sits on the most valuable commercial real estate in every American suburb, makes its money on almost everything except the one thing it is named after, and you will understand what is buried beneath the concrete that could cost you everything you own. If the fuel barely makes money, why are people still spending millions to build these places? To answer that, you have to look at what it actually costs to open one. Building a gas station from scratch requires between $1 million and $3 million in construction costs alone. That covers site preparation, the canopy over the pumps, the convenience store building, and the infrastructure connecting all of it. It does not cover the land, which in a high-traffic suburban location runs between $500,000 and over $1 million, and it does not cover the most expensive part of the entire operation, which is what goes underground. Every gas station in the country runs on underground storage tanks. The EPA calls them USTs. Every gallon of fuel you sell passes through one first. A standard 10,000-gallon double-walled fiberglass tank costs between $25,000 and $40,000 per unit. When you add excavation, installation, piping, and the required environmental permits, total expenditure for underground storage on a typical new station runs between $150,000 and $250,000. The pumps themselves cost between $15,000 and $25,000 each, and a full-size location needs 6 to 12 dispensers. Add it all up: land, construction, equipment, permits, environmental compliance, insurance, and working capital for the first 6 months. And the full cost to open a new gas station ranges from $1.5 million to well over $4 million. And you haven't sold a single gallon yet. Now let's talk about what you're actually selling. Fuel is a commodity. You didn't make it, refine it, or transport it. You bought it wholesale and resold it at a markup so thin it barely registers. Franchise stations get brand recognition and a guaranteed supply chain, but the brand sets your prices, picks your suppliers, and dictates your store layout. Independent stations get full control, but they're building customer loyalty from scratch on a product where most people choose based on price and proximity alone. A single station owner is fighting the same war as a national chain, but with worse pricing, less data, less buying power, and less room for mistakes. Either way, the net profit margin on fuel stays under 2%, a number that hasn't meaningfully changed in decades. Fuel prices fluctuate violently. The price of crude oil can move 20% in a single month, but the margin per gallon stays roughly the same regardless of whether gas costs $2.50 or $4.50 at the pump. When the wholesale price goes up, you raise the pump price. When it falls, you lower it. You're a pass-through for the oil market. The price gouging people accuse gas stations of during price spikes happens almost entirely at the refinery and distribution level, not at retail. The station owner is caught in the middle, keeping their 3 to 7 cents while customers yell at the pump. This is the fundamental problem with the gas station business. You're running a high-volume, high-overhead operation to deliver a product on which you earn almost nothing. So how does this business actually survive? Here's the answer that reframes everything. Gas is not the product. Gas is the bait. Convenience store sales are where the economics of a gas station actually work. In 2024, in-store sales hit 37.1% of total revenue, up from 33.8% the year before. The gross margin on a bottle of water, a bag of chips, a cup of coffee, or a car wash isn't 2%. It's closer to 30 to 50%. A customer who buys $50 in fuel and spends $4 on a coffee just handed you more profit on the coffee than on the entire tank. Add energy drinks, tobacco, lottery tickets, hot food, and ATM fees, and the store is doing work the pumps could never do. Every part of the modern gas station, the canopy, the pumps, the underground tanks, the $2 million in infrastructure, exists to generate foot traffic for the convenience store. You're not running a fuel business with a shop attached. You're running a shop that uses cheap fuel as its customer acquisition strategy. Gas is the bait. Everything else is the business. Buc-ee's proves this point better than anyone. The Texas-based chain has locations the size of small department stores. Their largest location has 120 pump stations and 80,000 square feet of retail space. People plan road trips around stopping at one. They buy branded merchandise, fresh food, and snacks they could get at any grocery store. But they choose Buc-ee's instead. The fuel is almost incidental to the business. The store became the destination, and the gas became the excuse. That's the model every gas station is now trying to replicate, with varying degrees of success. The average sole proprietor gas station is not Buc-ee's. The average owner of a single independently operated station, after fuel costs, payroll, utilities, rent or debt service, insurance, credit card processing fees, and every other operating expense, takes home somewhere between $60,000 and $150,000 a year. At a strong suburban location with good convenience store traffic, that number can reach $200,000 to $300,000. At a weak location, it can fall below $50,000 for a business that required $1.5 million to $4 million to open. But the real risk in this business is something customers never see. And the most expensive part of the station is not always the building you can see. It's the part buried under the ground. Every gas station in the country is sitting on underground storage tanks that are slowly aging. The useful life of a UST is 25 to 30 years. The EPA estimates that approximately half of all existing gas stations in the United States have storage tanks approaching or already exceeding that threshold. These tanks corrode, they develop hairline fractures, they leak, and when a UST leaks, the fuel does not stay contained. It migrates through the soil, it reaches the water table, it contaminates groundwater, which roughly half the US population depends on for drinking water. Thousands of municipal and private wells across the country have been permanently shut down as a result of contamination from leaking underground storage tanks. The EPA estimates the average cleanup of a leaking UST costs $154,000. That is the average. Cleanups involving groundwater contamination range from $100,000 to over $1 million. There are currently more than 57,000 leaking UST sites across the country, still waiting for full remediation. Roughly one contaminated site for every 20 miles of American highway. Here's the part that matters for anyone thinking about buying a gas station. You can buy a station that looks profitable on paper, has steady traffic, clean pumps, and strong sales, but beneath the concrete, a tank may already be leaking. And the worst part is, you may not know until after you own it. Under federal law, the person in control of the property at the time of the leak is liable for the cleanup, not the previous owner, not the oil company that supplied the fuel, not the tank manufacturer. You sign the papers, the deed transfers, and at that exact moment, a problem you knew nothing about becomes yours forever. Environmental due diligence before purchasing, soil testing, and Phase 2 assessments that cost $15,000 to $20,000 on their own is not optional. It's the difference between a business acquisition and a six-figure environmental cleanup obligation showing up 2 years after you sign. Federal law also requires owners to carry insurance covering UST cleanup costs at a minimum of $1 million per incident. For stations with aging tanks, that coverage on the private market is in some cases prohibitively expensive. Several states have created publicly funded programs to subsidize UST insurance precisely because private insurers will not touch the risk at any reasonable premium. The risk is so well understood, it has become a line item in public budgets. As if thin margins and underground liability were not enough, the business now has one more problem. The product it was built around may slowly lose demand. In 2024, electric vehicle sales globally exceeded 17 million units, accounting for more than 20% of all new car sales worldwide. In the United States, EVs accounted for roughly 10% of new car sales, a number growing every year. A Boston Consulting Group analysis projects that up to 25% of fuel retail stations in the US could become unprofitable by 2035 as gasoline demand declines. In markets where EV adoption accelerates fastest, fuel profits could fall by up to 60% over the same period. The industry is aware of this. The National Association of Convenience Stores spent much of its 2025 annual conference telling operators that the future of the business lies inside the store, not at the pump. Fuel revenues fell 5.7% in 2024 alone. The advice was to expand food service, add car washes, invest in loyalty programs, and reduce dependence on the product the business is named after. But here's something genuinely counterintuitive. EV drivers enter convenience stores 45% more often than gasoline customers, spend more money per visit, and are willing to pay a premium for locations that are clean, well-lit, and reliable. Gasoline customers leave in 5 minutes. EV customers may stay for 25. If the store is good, that waiting time becomes an opportunity. The economics of the transition, if you get ahead of it, are not necessarily worse than what they're replacing, but the capital required to retrofit a station for EV charging, on top of capital already invested in the original infrastructure, is another round of investment on a business that was already expensive to build. There are 152,000 gas stations in the United States today. That number has been declining for 2 consecutive years. In 1984, there were over 200,000. The industry has lost roughly 48,000 locations over 3 decades, each one a small business that closed, often family-owned, often in communities that depended on them. The math driving the consolidation is straightforward. The margins on fuel are too thin for small operators to compete with large chains that have the scale to extract better wholesale pricing, run more sophisticated loyalty programs, and invest in food service operations that actually generate profit. 60% of US convenience stores are still owned by operators with 10 or fewer locations. They're running the same product the chains are running for the same margin, with less leverage at every point in the supply chain. The gas station is one of the oldest and most recognizable businesses in American commercial life. It predates the interstate highway system. It was built into the architecture of the American suburb before the suburb itself existed. It won't disappear quickly. The convenience stores attached to these stations generated $837 billion in sales in 2024, a number driven increasingly by food, not fuel. The business you're buying today is not the business it was in 1990. The product that gets people to stop is being disrupted by the biggest shift in personal transportation since the automobile itself. The infrastructure beneath the concrete carries a liability that follows the deed, and 3 to 7 cents per gallon has never been enough to sustain anything on its own. The pump gets the customer to stop, the store makes the money, the tanks carry the risk, and the EV charger may decide whether the gas station survives the next version of American retail.